Blog Talk Radio.
Roots music for the 21st century. Reality music. Word, sound and power, the Rastaman. From the island of Jamaica to Hawaii, internationally to the world.
Don't you know that we ain't gonna stop doing that? Don't you know that we're climbing to the top? Yes, we are. Don't you know that we ain't gonna stop doing that? Don't you know that we're climbing to the top? Yeah, started from the gutter, about to reach the top. Looking at all these haters, I'm about to touch my luck. Ancestors on the other side telling me to stop. My demons say I'm out of time, I'm staring at the clock. Finishing up another hit, my album about to drop. The industry is full of haters, so I was about to fly. We hustling like we mountain climbers about to reach the top. We battling stress like we rubber bands about to pop. Problems with promoters telling lies, they can get it right. In the club, security surrounding us, yeah, we about to fight. Damn, I need a drink of cushion.
Greetings and welcome to the Truth to Power show, and my name is Beverly D. And tonight we have Aseer, the Duke of Tears, will be with us again this evening. And we also have Ron March from the Ron March show. And those of you that listened to the Ron March show yesterday, he had very important and informative guests, Jonah Bay, and he talked about 98 EIN number. And so we're going to have Aseer to give us some more insight on about trust. Ron March, are you with me tonight?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am, Beth.
Okay.
Looking forward to our meeting tonight.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear? Okay, because I got these phone. I don't know if it's working good or not. Okay, and I'm waiting on our guest to come aboard. And so while that I'm waiting on him to come aboard, can you kind of give us a little insight on what your guest yesterday, the information that he gave us?
Well, I was so busy taking notes that basically he took us through the third degree in regard to education on where to find information and how to be sure that what you're doing is lawful and it has documentation in their books. And as you know, as he took us step by step through the process, the trust is a very important program package that we all must have in order to free ourselves, because what makes us slaves is the fact that we do not have a trust. We're not in any type of trust, which makes us be engulfed, if I may say, under the 14th Amendment, which puts us under the corporation, United States of America, and makes us a part of their trust. So with that being said, in order for us to free ourselves, and I'm talking about every, let's call them Negro, colored, black, all those labels, Afro-American, the whole shebang. I don't care if you're a paper boy or a CEO, you are a slave in this system known as United States of America, Inc. And he took us step by step. And I'm in the process of raising funds to make a trip down to Atlanta in Georgia to meet with him in order to get this information more in depth and more specific so I can come back and teach it to our people here in the Detroit area. So that's where I am right now. And And
so how can people get in touch with you if they want to help with the fundraiser?
Yes. My website is Ron March Show. And when you go to that site, there is a PayPal. There's a donation button that takes you directly to PayPal. And all I would like for you to do is just say donation for travel. They'll ask you the purpose of it. You make sure you specify donate for travel. And it doesn't matter where you're from and where you are. I'm going to teach it both in lectures in Detroit area, and I'm going to do it on my programs. Now, when I say programs, I'm talking about let me say it right, man. The Blog Talk Radio /Ron March. I have opened up my Blog Talk, and so I'll be able to teach. I'm going to start having classes right online to lay this information out. So everybody's going to be available. Plus, my email address is ronmarchshow@yahoo.com for anyone that either or misses the lectures online or want to ask me specific questions in regards to some information that they may have in regards to the process. But we all must, at all costs, we got to get this information. We got to understand it, and we definitely got to learn it and learn it fast.
Okay, Ron. So the guest is here, Aseer, and I'm going to pull him up. Aseer, the Duke of Tears.
Peace, Queen. How you doing?
Peace. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you again for having me. Peace, Ron. How are you, brother?
I'm very good, sir. How are you?
Man, one day at a time.
Yeah, I understand. We're having a snowstorm in Detroit, one of the first. So I'm kind of snowed in. I was going to go to Atlanta tonight, but I postponed it until we can get a break on the weather. So
okay.
I'm going to work with you, talk with you, and listen to you for sure, because you open up so much information. So I'll sit back and listen. And, they told me when you're on the air, sir, to keep my mouth shut because they need to hear more.
It's all good. It's all good.
Here we had learned some information about the 98 EIN number, and that's dealing with foreign and dealing with trust. Can you kind of give us some information about a trust?
Well, like we talked about last week, a trust essentially is that which is based on blood right and inheritance. And there are varying differential aspects of what trusts really do and what they really are. But essentially, all trusts are based on literally that, trust. So because most trusts came into existence at a time when the monarchs could no longer trust each other based upon the corruption that was brought about by the rise of the church, the so-called church. And so the marrying of a way to get people to be able to be bonded to their word, whereas it used to be people would die for their word, had to be initiated. So membranas, a.k.a. documents, parchments, were put into effect to allow people to have some sort of record that these things occurred. But this decay in people's honor had been happening from the time of Hammurabi Bey, a.k.a. Hammurabi, who put down the codes of Hammurabi in cuneiform, which essentially was a trust document put forth on how to deal with people who weren't from your nation. So the aspect of corruption created the response by which people had to now utilize a means of identification of both the intent of whatever the agreement was as well as when the agreement took place. And then once that agreement was was done, there had to be a place to be able to house the results of that agreement as well. And so that became the private trust. That was another way that Moors, as well as other people, began to find ways to hide their money away from, again, the powers that be, which were becoming more and more corporate in their agenda. So as we went from empires, kingdoms, and dominions, we phased into a time of countries, nations, and states. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the trust in itself is only as good as the people creating it. So the aspect of protecting one asset is then also vested and protected in the interest then of the government, which then pledges or has pledged itself as a republic to bring forth the resolution, i.e. protection of those trusts in law or at law. So the law that they are under is the law of, let's say, the Constitution, which is a federalized law that was given to them, of which they adopted. So because they adopted this thing means that it had parents before, because that's what adoption means, right? It means that you take on the child, right, of the previous owners, of parents. So if the Constitution is the child, then who were the previous parents by which they adopted this child from? You see? Mm-hmm. This is what they don't really get into, because that's phasing into our place in the American strata. Because we, as Alamaratanos, are integral in the Republican form of government that established both what is now the Republican and Democratic and Independent and Progressive parties that exist today. That the reason why you can't really find no information on the Republic is for the fact that that's not them. You get what I'm saying? They can't give you information about something that they aren't. They can only give you the information by what they have been sworn to protect in trust. That's why it says, in God we trust. You see what I'm saying? So the trust that they talk about is the pledge that they've given to protect the Republic, for which it stands. That's me and you. But what they are doing to preserve the democracy is taking people out of the Republic who are supposed to be always in that Republic and trying them then in the democracy, you see, which is a violation of what? The trust. You see, that's why their country is in such dire straits as it's in, because they have, before the eyes of the world, violated the trust that was given to them when our empire fell.
Read your last text. Call in. You got to call in that number.
Wait a minute. Go ahead, Aseer. Oh, wait a minute. I did the wrong one. Okay, Aseer.
So, like I said, how you doing, brother? So again, that becomes the insight for us to analyze what it is we are trying to do when we establish, let's say, our private trust. So your private trust, let's say if you are creating that trust within the boundaries of the United States, is then somewhat annexed to the trust laws of the United States. Everybody with money don't put their trust in the United States or under United States trust laws. They put them under international trust laws. And what they use is their national or their nationality as a means of protection for it, i.e., I don't want to have my money taxed or whatever in the U.S. So because I married a Swedish woman, I can get a Swedish passport, and now I can take my money and put it under the trust laws of Sweden. You see what I'm saying? Even though I live in the U.S. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that becomes the modicum of exchange in the global paradigm. So you have to understand, everybody that's got money is doing that, because the Swiss proved that they could be somewhat loyal with money during World War II, when Krupp, who built the ovens, Krups and them built the ovens, right? IBM built the tracking modules, right? Lockheed and Martin through Bush paid for the chemical research, right? That went into all of the.
And you talked about the extermination of the Jews,
right? Which really was, they already had a homeland annexed to them after the fall of the Forbidden City, the last emperor of China. There was a place called Manchukuo that was going to be set aside for them to live there. And one of the processes by which they got the Jews of that time to start to acquiesce to living amongst Asians like that in that quantity was to adopt a diet. That's why when you go to a lot of Chinese restaurants and Japanese restaurants, they'll have, to this day, they'll have the kosher sticker in that. Like Jews always is up in Chinese restaurants and all of that. You dig? That's not a stereotype. That's just based upon how they were conditioned during a time when they were put through this process to create a chosen race among Caucasian people that could then be used to create a puppet state that we today now know as Israel. Another trust enacted by the British on behalf of Charles Hertz, a.k.a. the Protocols or the Learned Elders of Zion, them type of people.
Wow. Mercy.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're dealing with a creation of a worldwide so-called banking cartel network. Like what's going on today? You got gangsters like mobsters and all of that who are buying a lot of these defaulted banks. You know what I'm saying? So that way they can have a legitimate source now to house whatever monies or whatever they got and then involve themselves. So now we're looking at the corporate annexation of organized crime into a somewhat banking cartel as these known banking cartels are being focused on, such as the so-called Rothschilds, who came out of a Moorish family called the Red Shield, because Roth in Old German is Ref or Roth, which means red, and short or shield again was the red shield that was above the doors of those families that came under the rule of the jurisdiction of the days of the Medici family. Again, other Moors who, after the expulsion of Granada, chose to put themselves back in power and then created what we today know as the so-called medical industry, because they were Knights Hospitaller. This is where we get the term hospital from, as well as the fact that they were Medici, and they funded a lot of the so-called medical research at places like Oxford, as well as a place called Ingolstadt University, where they made Frankenstein. You know what I'm saying? Where Weishaupt, where a.k.a. Weishaupt went, who was the so-called head of the so-called Illuminati, created, went to school at as well, coincidentally. So these things all laid out in history are the result of our people being taken out of the natural trust that existed for them, which only existed for them in the nationality by which they inherited it from in their somewhat original context, meaning that what your forefathers were then, they are today. But if you accepted that your forefathers were slaves, then that's what you are today. You understand? That's what you descend from today. So therefore, you don't deserve anything in terms of rights and privileges that's given to you, because the master has already so-called freed you. So that's the most a slave can get. But if you are under the jurisdiction, let's say, or the history of somebody who was a prisoner of war, now you're dealing with somebody that actually came from a country. It just so happens that the country we came from was actually right here. It's just that we were redesignated based upon us being divided at the time at a crucial period when we should have been together. And the rest is history. So, again, they made a distinction in the Constitution between slavery, Negro slavery, and African slavery. So that lets you know that there were three types of slaves. You know what I'm saying? Or they were working on creating three types of slaves. they fuse all three in the Negro, which has now been upgraded to the so-called nigger with no knowledge of the previous incarnations of words like naga and nagels and things like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But our ancestors never had paperwork to declare their trust and or their nationality. When did it begin?
No, because everybody was under the nationality of, we're talking about a time where everybody in the world spoke our language, which was either Mograbian, which was a form of Moorish Latin, or Arabic, or Morabic, which became Arabic. You know what I'm saying? That means Mongolian people, that means British people, that means everybody in the world, like everybody speak English now, was speaking that language. So that language, again, was manifested out of the advent of people, our people, who traversed the entire world, mapped it, created the spiritual centers and all that from it from time immemorial. So it was really nothing by the time we get up to 1776 to feel like we still was going to be able to hold it together. However, due to the habit that became in vogue where Moors began to raise up Caucasoid Freemasons or WIGHT whites and use them to disinherit other Moors by proxy, you see, that then led to a position where every Moor that did that and every white Caucasoid that moved up, right, wound up hooking up with the other white boy who the Moor was doing the same thing with, and they start creating their own agreement. This is where you start to get things where they start mixing with royalty and start being compromised through sexual orgies and stuff, and things like they used to have called the Hellfire Club, the Hellfire Clubs in England. All of it being ritualized, where they was doing all of these so-called rituals as a means to defy the so-called church that they themselves put themselves under to be able to break away from the old empire.
Yes.
So again, they plan themselves to the point they say Benjamin Franklin was down with this order. Now that is if we presume that Benjamin Franklin was actually a real person in history, when every place that he allegedly lived was owned by Benjamin Banneker Bay, a.k.a. Big Ben, for whom they named the clock of in England, based upon the first clock being created in that modern time by him, based on the Amarillary knowledge, how to build those type of things from the Lenape Moors that he himself, a free Moor, had grew up under. You see what I'm saying? And already had that knowledge of that based upon them being a part of the empire.
Wow.
So we today, as remnants of that empire, have the right to reclaim that which is ours in the name of that, in the modern pretense of who we are, with a national, with a divine and a national aspect that can take us out of the so-called Negro jurisdiction and put us back into the international waters, by which now we have more credibility and by which we then fall under the laws of treaty, which then supersede that of any municipality, admiralty that comes from any state or municipal jurisdiction.
Wow.
See, it's about reestablishing the trust within each other before we can even begin to, let's say, get to a point where I say, okay, this is exactly how you do it. Like, as much as I would like to, go into that in depth, I can only build on that to a certain degree based upon the responsibility that comes from sharing that method with people, because it's actually correct. What dirty Moors and what charlatans and people are doing is they're using the position that they have to be able to milk the people out of what little is they have based upon the modern understanding of trust. But the modern understanding of trust that they are dealing with is a foreign by nature. Like when you say the 9-8 number, like that's cool, right? Because that shows that you're a foreign jurisdiction. But at the same time, you're not. That can also make you foreign to the land that you're in. You got to make the clear delineation between you and the United States. You're not. You can be seen as a citizen of the United States because you're an American by declaration. You see what I'm saying? But the 9/8 number is used, ironically, in a method to categorize people that are coming outside of that. So technically, anything coming outside of the United States is foreign, yes, but you're not foreign to the land. You see what I'm saying? You're foreign to the corporate jurisdiction. That's two different things.
How do we differentiate? We can't get a EIN number. It's only two ways we can do it. One through the government and one from the foreign 98. So which way should we go?
Well, again, when you are doing things by yourself as an individual, you see what I'm saying? You got to do what you got to do. So for the individual, the latter would probably be beneficial. But for those of us that are individuals as well as understand our residency as a part of the old empire, then you can receive an EIN number through the actual government that's listed in their records as an ecclesiastical government to be able to issue you that. You understand? Okay. So let's say the Moroccan Temple of America, which is a quote unquote a bona fide religion according to Leeds Bay versus Johnson Bay. Leeds Bay versus Johnson.
Yeah.
Based on that, and because it was established way even before 1913, you know what I mean? This is going back to 1871. You got the Moroccan Temple listed in Pembroke on the old Tribe of Ben Ishmael map. You know what I mean? And even before then, I think it's even further back then. That map is even older than that. So we're talking about a predestined concept that was actualized at a specific time on August 1st, 1928, which established the Moroccan Temple as a whatever we needed to be, basically as a trust, with all of us being beneficiaries, so long as we adopt the tenets of the isonomy, which is love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and equality. And by declaration, brings us back under the protection of the international treaty, as well as the supremacy clause of the Social Constitution of the United States, which means then that we come into the country then not through the 14th Amendment, Slave Amendment, the 13th or 14th or 15th Amendment as an alien, but come into it through the preamble to the 7th article as an American, based upon us declaring that through our proclamation as Moors.
Why is this not taught? Why is this not taught separately? Because I mentioned to you last week that it seems to be two sets of Moorish Science Temple, and we need to be able to differentiate between the two, so we can go further in research to, not verify per se, but at least get more involved to understand what you're really saying.
Indeed. Well, what it is that there was the Moorish Science Temple that was established from 1913 to 1928, beginning 1929. After that, after the Prophet Noble Jew Ali, depending on what legend you follow, was gone, the temple went through a reorganization period that by 1938, it was now reorganized as a 501c3.
Yes.
Under the aspect of Moroccan Temple of America, Incorporated, meaning that the Moroccan Temple was incorporated into the United States. However, the Moroccan Temple of America Divine and National Movement from 1913 to 1928 was not reorganized on that fashion. It still is under the original tenet and charter of the Torrance title system, which makes it an ecclesiastical government / religious body politic and corporate, meaning it's its own functioning state, because it has its own constitution, its own bylaws, its own national headdress, its own national character, its own creed, its own covenant, you see what I'm saying, its own flags, you know what I'm saying? And it's been noted in the so-called American strata by which certain things have been set aside for aspects or members or beneficiaries of that. But those are the ones that are coming from, or those of us that understand the international/national connection to both, meaning that we understand that there's an international aspect of this that has not really been accessed until now. And that's because from 1938 to almost now, most of these temples that were functioning under the incorporated vessel were naturalizing their people, by which made them foreign to their own temple, meaning that they were more Moors before they went through the naturalization process with these Moors than they were after. Because naturalization is a form in which you become, going back to the laws of expatriation and repatriation citizenship, it's noted in the United States Journal, a Secretary of State journal, that when one Moorish nationality is not affected, or customary law or whatever is not affected by any Moor, so long as that Moor is not naturalized in a foreign country. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So when these Moors went to these so-called incorporated temples and they naturalized themselves, that was them coming out of Alamatacanos Estados, meaning the true American Moorish Republic, i.e. the Moorish Science Temple of America, Divine and National Movement, 1913 and 1928, and then into now this whole 501c3, we're Moors, we're also Freemasons, we're also, you see what I'm saying? Police, we're also all of this other stuff. And so we got more bread and whatever, but we're really just a glorified fraternal organization, which is not what the home office, Moorish Science Temple, 1913, 1928 is. So any temple that is dealing with, let's say, home office, what they call home office, home rule, is then functioning in that tradition that was set up by the man who received the mandate back from the Sultan to be able to reestablish ourselves in the future as what we are as lords again in our own land.
Is there a temple in Michigan of the original
home office, home rule? Not that I know.
Where's the closest?
There's Carbondale. We're in the process of establishing from the home office in Carbondale in Mecca, which is in Chicago, where we have home office Chicago, home office down here, one in North Carolina, one in Arizona, one in New York, Philadelphia. And anybody wants to have any information about those or whatever, me as a Sultan can provide that to you if you email me at houseofl@hotmail.com, or how to go through the program by which you can be appointed Grand Speaker or Grand Speaker, by which you can set up a home office, ecclesiastical government properly in your own territory, to then be able to set up the three main tenets of what we're supposed to be doing, which is establishing the temple, establishing the bank, establishing the school. Once you have those three things, you have to have a security contingency around that, the same way the Jews have their own security, the same way Chinese have their own security in their community. And then before you know it, instead of you going on Facebook and doing all of this other stuff or whatever, it's just a whole community of people just living like this, where they start calling it names like Little Morocco or stuff like that. That's how you know you've been fully integrated or repatriated back to your own culture, where people automatically don't ask you, oh, what's that on your head? That's a nice hat. They already know, oh, he's a Moor. Like, that's the same way you'll see somebody say, oh, that's a Jew, or oh, that's a Hindu, or oh, that's a whatever. It's the same way you're going to do it with Moors. It's just that the preconceived notion of Moors being Muslims and things like that is not necessarily a problem, but what it is our people are, in my opinion, lacking to a certain degree is the ability to reconcile themselves around a singular identity that is multifaceted. So if I say I'm a Moor, that means when I see a Rasta, I don't see him as a Moor, I see him as a Rasta. No, I see him as a Moor who happens to be practicing Rastafari. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Same way, if I see a Moor who's dressed up like a cop, okay, I don't know if he's a dirty cop or not, you know what I mean? But the fact that he is a Moor is the fact that he's a melanated being. And that's what ancestrally we've always referred to ourselves as, because it's a verb. It's not a noun like Negro. It's not dead. You understand? It's not. In Latin, it's loca forticitas obsita, which means the Moor, or to be grounded, to be rooted. You see what I'm saying? In or like when a boat is tied to a dock, it's moored. Just like every time you go to the edge of a shore that's called a bay, that's because all shores were under the jurisdiction of the bays. Understand? So we go to Chesapeake Bay. Chesapeake Bays, you know what I'm saying, ran that place. But a bay is also now, again, an inlet. So everything that we physically are, what I'm trying to show you is that everything that we physically are that was remnants of what we were actually physically doing and spiritually doing in the world has now become placeholders or words to describe aspects of what we were doing with it, but not exactly what it is. So if I say I'm a Moor, right, in Spanish, they're calling that moreno. You see what I'm saying? Or morto in the Philippines, or M-O-H-R in whatever. But in any culture, it means the black people. See what I'm saying? It's only in European so-called, really, it's only in so-called racist white supremacy United States culture that they want to make you, they want to take credit for it all and make you think that the Moors was white or light-skinned or Arabs or something like that. But that's because, again, they don't want us to centralize around the identity that is most faceted to us. We tried the African identity, that don't work. We tried the black identity, that's not working. We tried the semi-Kemite identity, all that. People are not going to be walking around. Now, everybody's going to be walking around with Nimitz crowns and all that on their head. They don't want to do that. You know what I mean? We tried the Christianity identity. That's killing everyone. You done tried every identity from every other part of the world. You hear black people today, hey, what are you? Oh, I'm part French. I'm part Dutch. I'm part British. I'm part African. I'm part Jamaican. What about you is whole? What are you whole of? You see?
Yeah.
See, when I say I'm a Moor, I'm saying I'm all of that. You dig what I'm saying? And none of it without having to do that. Because I could go to the Netherlands and show you the Moors that look just like me, wearing the same thing I got on my head now, that set up this place. I could go to China and do that. I could go anywhere in the world and do that, but I can't do that as a Negro. As a Negro, I got to go to the point of no return, right? The Cape of Good Hope, right? I got to go to all the slave shit. I got to go to all of the you know, I got to go to the lynching trees, right? I got to go to the plantation, right? That's what's etched for me when I take that identity, right? No, thank you. I'm not going to use that identity because that don't apply to me. You understand? My grandmother used to go out with the ambassador to the Gambia, okay? And all this man used to tell me was, you ain't no African. And this is in my black power phase. This is in my whole, you know, wearing the medallion, you know, the red, black, and green medallions, and you know what I'm saying? Fight the power and all that. Here go the African telling me. He said, no, you ain't no African. You are not African. He said, no matter what you wear, you'll never be African. Yep. So, again, I'm thinking he dissing me. You see? That's youth. That's lack of wisdom and having a father in the house. You dig? But years later, I see he's right. He was putting me on the game. You see what I'm saying? Because he worked for the UN. He knew all of that. This dude was Muslim, right? This dude was Muslim and came home one day talking to me about how he got to meet the Pope and kiss his ring. I was so disgusted with that man. I said, again, obviously I'm not. I'm not African because I couldn't do something like that. You dig what I'm saying? But again, the difference between us and them is that they allowed them to keep their language. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Our language was stricken. that Moorish Latin, that Arabic was also planted with Spanish. You dig? Yeah. And then that was forbidden from those of us that was already born here. And then what they started doing was mixing us up with the prisoners of war that was coming straight from the continent, who was speaking like Wolof and Hausa and Tuareg and all of this. We don't speak none of that. That's not even our culture. We can, you know what I'm saying? We African descent, but we're not African nativity. We're Alamancanos. We have our own identity. But it seems like nobody want to exist in that identity. Everybody want to claim something else because they think that's going to get them money. And while we doing that, everybody in Switzerland every year is painting themselves black, right? Putting on Moorish fezzes and turbans and all of that, right? Same thing in Spain. They dressing up like Moors every year from 1492. Every year from the year we got kicked out, they doing the same ritual, dressing us. Why you kick us out if you want to dress up like us? And for the next 150 years, 250 years. 1492 should be the day of memorial for all Moors in the world. October 13th, 1492 should be a memorial for all of us that know who and what we are, what we lost in terms of the fracturing of the empire. But we don't look at ourselves as a whole people. Like I said, we already talking about, oh, well, I'm part this, or I'm Creole, Beyonce, or I'm Creole, I got, I'm half French and all that. When you look at everybody in her family, they darker than me. Because the Creoles, the real ones, is darker than me. You see what I'm saying? But she want to act like the part that's dope is the French part. But guess what? The French part was black too. Napoleon was a Corsica, and Corsica was an island set up by the Moors of the Grimaldi line of Monaco, connected to the Monacan Moors, the Montakas over here. His general Dumas, who wrote The Count of Monte Cristo, all of these movies that you see white folk dressed up in, like they was there, like they was doing it. He was darker than me. His nephew, his Napoleon, Antoinette, who again was another, she was like Lena Horne, right? She had a cousin named Murat, who was as dark as Khalid Mohammed. You know what I'm saying? He married Antoinette's sister, who all of them was connected to Charlotte. But Napoleon was bred to break up the Holy Roman Empire, to destroy the Hanseatic League, which was our international wing of the old Moorish Empire in terms of our agreement of, being cousins and stuff, in terms of how the empire went between us and the so-called Moravingians, or the Moors from the Franciscan Moors. So by the time that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Now, on the trust thing, now on an individual level, if a person wanted to do the foreign trust, I mean that you're saying that's okay if you want to go that direction, but you're saying it's better to go under the main, the temple, the root right there. You say it's best to put all the trust
because when you declare your nationality and you become, let's say, a temple card carrying member of, let's say, a home office, home rule thing, then you're already going to be functioning from an international perspective anyway, meaning that you'll have a passport that reflects your national declaration as a Moor. Because United States citizens can't take no pictures with no headdresses on. You got to get a special form from that. You can create one as an individual, and that's great. But again, United States citizens are property of the United States. That's human capital. That's like taking one of them, giving one of them asylum is like stealing money. So the United States has a right to come and get its property. That's what movies like Black Hawk Down and The Hunt for Bin Laden and all that stuff is about. That's them going there and getting stuff that they was able to set up. They can only get stuff that they set up. So based on that, if something was to go down here and you wanted to get asylum from, let's say, a Moorish type country, meaning a country like Turkey or Tunis, something like that, if you don't have no reflective identity of you establishing yourself as being part of, you see what I'm saying, or being a Moor, you see what I'm saying, you then fall under the other jurisdiction, the Negro jurisdiction, which is in his property. You can't get asylum from nobody else. Remember during Katrina, everything went down. All them countries in the world was offering to send money, and they stopped all of the boats that was sending all the money and the clothes and the medicine and all that. Remember they did that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Y'all heard about that, right? Okay.
Right.
That's because they have the right to refuse help for their slaves. And their slaves, that's why they start calling them refugees. Remember?
Yeah.
That's because they own them. You understand? It's a trick. It's horrible. It's not right. But there is a way out. But that way out has been so diluted with people, you know, because they see more of these dirty Moors doing this BS on TV, trying to advertise houses and $7 million houses, claiming them all this crazy stuff. That has nothing to do with Moorish science. Those are not, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not reflective of the real thing. And when you was to sit down and speak to some of those people, you would find some of the same similarities. They came up watching these patriots, these white boys, or listening to one of these people on YouTube, you see what I'm saying, that was involved with this and that, and then started, you know, really going into the UCC. It's always the same story. You see what I'm saying? Because it's a beta wave that's set up to attract people of a certain algorithm. So if you're really into this for money, you see what I'm saying, this will drive you crazy because what you may get may be going quicker than you access it. You could write the promissory note and all of that for the house, right? And then, boom, give it to the bank take it. But unless you got evidence of that transaction, if the bank won't provide, the bank can then call the sheriff the next day and say it never happened. I've seen it happen many times. You see what I'm saying? Because everybody's doing it as an individual to get money. That's the problem. You see what I'm saying? If you have a state, you know how the Jews do? They write everything off to Israel, man. Whatever they want to do, whatever they want to flip it, however they want to get out of it, it's to Israel. You catch a body here, go send them to Israel. That's what it did to the dude that killed Gavin Cato in Brooklyn. Nobody know where he at. This happened in like 86. I'm right there on Kingston Avenue. I hear the crash. Go around the corner, this little boy is pinned up against this dude, this rabbi drunk. Black people jumped on that man so fast, the Jews came out, got him. Boom, next thing you know, he gone. Where he at? He in Israel. You dig what I'm saying? They got a place to go. They fought a 7-day war for that. You dig? And they killed maybe about 1 million people to give them the right to look like the chosen people. So that way we would no longer be the most persecuted on the planet.
Yes.
This is how they long-term plan this thing. This rodeo has been going on for a long time, man. They still got people thinking they went to the moon, man. That's how deep the game is right now. We're still debating on whether black people should call themselves nigger or not or whatever. This is the level of asininity that our people are still on. So that's not all of us, though. That's those of us that are choosing to be a part of that. So all I'm saying is what was already set up was already done, and was set up so well that they had to set up a Geneva Convention. The first 7 years of the Geneva Convention is still sealed. It's going to be sealed to 2027. Those years are the ones that specifically talk about what happened in terms of the Prophet receiving everything back from the Sultan and the possibility of the Alamatacanos Estados coming back into their own. Get a book called 10 Years of Secret Diplomacy, an unheeded warning. The book is all about how the British, the French, the racist United States people, and the Spanish worked to destroy the Moorish Empire and absorb it into their 3 divisions, even though they all have treaties of peace and friendship with it. The book starts with the Moorish Empire. It starts with then it goes into the Moroccan Empire with a M-A, right? Then it goes into the Empire of Morocco. Then it goes into the Kingdom of Morocco. Then it talks about the Alamatacanos Estados. Then it starts talking about the government of Morocco. By the time they start talking about the government of Morocco, that's a foreign place. That's not us over here. You see, we are in what's called the Maghreb, the Morocco of the farthest west. Therefore, we have a different history. You see what I'm saying? Than everybody else. So if that history is specific to us, why aren't we under that history? Because then that would create a subroutine within the psyche of us as people to then go back to a certain way of living that we think is foreign to us, which is actually more advantageous to our survival.
Yes.
Because now what happens is if things go south, you actually can get asylum from another country that happens to be recognized you as a Moor, you as a part of the old Moroccan or Al-Maroccanos Estados or the Maghreb, the Moors of the Maghreb. They recognize that.
Yes.
You have a question, Ron?
Yes, I have a question. I have that book, Secrecy of the Moorish Empire, 10 Years Secrecy. My question is, why do they start with the year 1903, and I think it goes to 1911, when I was taught that Morocco did not exist until 1956, when Eisenhower went in there and took it out of El Morocco and sent it over there.
Exactly. Because Al Morocco was the empire. The kingdom of Morocco was the somewhat creation of what happened after the Barbary powers lost the war. So they're talking about the time when Roosevelt and them was dealing with it and how they was going to be able to capitalize on the fracturing or separation of this aspect of what we today now know as Morocco, which was over there.
But they had maps. They showed maps where it was sitting above Spain, where it is today. Now, how and why was that if Eisenhower did what he did in 1956? That's what confused me. I've read it, and it is, I don't have the depth to read it to get the understanding, but I've read it twice, not the whole book, but I've been in it several times trying to get a grasp on what they're talking about. I know they're fighting over control of Morocco, and they're making deals among themselves as to what should or should not be. And then they get to fighting among themselves.
Exactly.
And did that, all of that madness. And I was trying to...
Because they were breaking their own trust. The trust was the treaties that they had with Morocco. Remember, Morocco was in 1787 when the Moors of Al-Morocco. Now, when we say Al-Morocco, or the Al-Moroccan Empire, we're talking about North Africa over there, all the way up into Spain, all the way up into southern France.
Yes.
All the way down into Tunis, Tripoli, all the Barbary states, and then over into Egypt. And then over then into what is now Arabia, and then into what we now today call Turkey. Okay. All of that at one point was the eastern half of the empire. The western, the Maghreb, again, the lands of Bled El Seba, the lands outside the Sultan's jurisdiction, was the land of the Al-Maroccanos Estados. That's North Central South America. That's all of us over here, right, who had an international aspect and a domestic aspect. So when we see a lot of the old pictures of the American Indians, the real dark ones and all of that, with the feathers and all of that, those is the Moors that's here automatically on the land, right? And when you see the same pictures now, that period where you see Moors now with turbans and all of that, but then they got feathers and stuff in the front, that's the international end of the empire. These are the Moors that's traveling back and forth, bringing everything back. This is how you get in so-called Indian tobacco in Germany, right? And then the sign for the Indian tobacco from Germany now, for people to know that you got it, is a image of a Moor, right, of an Indian Moor from over here. You see what I'm saying? This is before Columbus. This is before all of that, right? So when we talk about the Moorish Empire or the old Moorish Empire now, we're talking about the empires, kingdoms, and dominions within that. So, for instance, Louis XVI was, or Leo Africanus, as they call him, was Louis XVI in the court of Britain. You see what I'm saying? The Duke of Lancaster was really Moulay Ismail. You see what I'm saying? So you got the same way, like, your uncle might call you Pookie, but then, you know what I mean, people might call you this. You have different names in different realms.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is they show you a picture of Saint Maurice, right, from Germany, and then they show you these other pictures, and they say, oh, all of these pictures is of Saint Maurice. Right? Where really they showing you pictures of all of these different Moorish knights that existed at this period and was ruling and lording over these Caucasians. So I'm saying all of that to say that Morocco, when we talk about it, is a perpetual state that we as Moors are always in. So because it has never been clearly defined, the parameters of how to even deal with Morocco, if you really look at the records and stuff, they really don't know how to deal with it. Because what it is a perpetual ecclesiastical government that is also a theocratic aristocracy, all in one.
Was the secret?
Go ahead.
Excuse me. Was the secret that the Moors of Morocco did not know that they were fighting or manipulating them? Is that what made it a secret? Because I want to know why.
Yes, because they were manipulating the Hagarine line of Moors, meaning the ones that had more of the Arab side, the foreign ones from over there. That's why they couldn't raise the flag over that, because they were trying to create a version of Morocco that could be under the influence of Europe. You see what I'm saying? Which was different than the general empire of Morocco that existed by the Moors of Barbary that was still at that time seizing their ships. You see what I'm saying? The Sultan of Morocco over there had no jurisdiction over us over here. We were all sultans, kings, queens, emperors, dukes, and all of that over here. All of us were. We all were our own estates. So in order for them to be broken, they had to take the E off of the estate and make them states. So the state of Morocco, which is a perpetual thing that we as Moors always exist in, meaning that when I wear my fez, right, that is a representation of my national character. The fez in the times before Christ was referred to as the Phrygian cap, the cap of perpetual liberty. It was a symbol of what they call the sacrifice of Mithra, which means that it was an ornamentation given to those who are willing to sacrifice their own vanity to preserve the liberty for their own self and their own family, meaning that you keep your hair covered only and reveal it only to the one that you love. That sacrifice of vanity is what the image of Mithra is. When you see the image of Mithra, it's a man pulling the horns of the bull back, right? Yeah. So the symbolic aspect of wearing the Phrygian cap, or a.k.a. the cap of liberty, a.k.a. the fez, is the oldest sign of liberty and revolution in the world, maybe even the universe. Because when you look at these images of the Assyrians, the Egyptians, the Hittites, the Hyksos, they all wearing fezzes, they all wearing turbans. You see images of Jesus, Christ, the Rome, they all wearing the same headgear. You see what I'm saying? Because they all were part of a national identity that became fractured around the time of Carthage and Rome. Wow. So, based on all of that,
it's just too complicated for the average Joe. We got too much.
That's exactly why I think the Prophet made it so simple. The Divine Constitution and Bylaws only got 7 articles. You know what I'm saying? The basic premise of the Moorish Science Temple is the isonomy, which is I son, I mother, meaning love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and equality. Who don't want that? Everybody wants that. That's like saying food, clothes, and shelter. Who's against that? You see? I think it made it so simple as a means to get into it. You see what I'm saying? So that way we all could come in on the same somewhat level. And in that way, boom, we all accept ourselves as Moors. We all accept this aspect of it. Okay, now, in order for us to establish the full ecclesiastical government in its grandeur, what do we have to do? Okay, we already got the basis of a constitution. Now, based on that, we need to do this. You see what I'm saying? And so forth and so on. Now the trust is made. You see what I'm saying? Because now we all rock, we all down with the same thing. So this don't mean that if you want to be a Christian, you could be a Christian. That has no bearing on me personally. That's between you and Allah. However, you could be a Christian and still have a bay or an eel at the end of your name. You know what I'm saying? And still wear fez the same way that the Moors used to rock the reason why you have black security guards today everywhere you go, especially in corporate buildings, especially in buildings owned by people of the Jewish faith, is because in around 1611, the Hanoverian King George, another George, took over, but he was German, and he didn't speak English. He only spoke French. So they had to put the German George king and put him in an English court where they only spoke English. But because he spoke French, he decided that the language of the court would be French. So you have a German king, right, in an English court, and the language of the court is now going to be French. Okay?
Yes.
So based on that now, people who could only get with him, people who could get with him could only, to go to the court and bill with him, could only bill with him if they spoke French.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So, of course, the French now was going to get a monopoly. This is what everybody thought. So he happened to have two Moors who were his attachés, meaning his liaisons, because they spoke French, German, English, Spanish, Latin, Sanskrit. They spoke it all. It was Muhammad and Mustafa. And he needed them so much now, where they started choosing his food, what he wore, who he spoke to, whatever. So anybody that wanted to get to him had to come up with bread and arms and tribute for them. So pretty soon they start running the Hanoverian court. And then it became vogue now for the kings and queens of Europe now to get Moors, direct Moors now of the empire specifically, to be next to them. That's why you start seeing all of these pictures started being painted where you see the little Moor next to the white woman or the white man or the Moor holding a horse or something like that, but he's elaborately dressed. Those ain't slaves. Those are the children of the Moors who were sponsoring that white person in that picture. So what happens is these things that we have come to just take for granted that we automatically think is all white folk turn out has nothing to even do with them. They seized power really as a people between 1933 really and 1945. That's the height. That's when they balling out of control, believe it or not. Everything up to them, we still had a lot of say and stuff.
Yes.
So really, they only been rocking really for a short period of time. But we are basing that time on their history of us. Therefore, we are missing the bigger picture that we were always here. And if we were always here, that means then that there is something here for us. That's why you got that pyramid on that dollar that they want you to believe belong to the Illuminati, but really is a symbol of your government that was already here, because that was the symbol on the continental money of the Confederacy. Not the Confederacy of Andrew Jackson and them, but the Confederacy of the so-called national regular general government of the Moors between 1774 and 1779.
Aseer, I'm going to open up the telephone lines. I have a caller here. And so if you want to ask Aseer a question or a comment, you can call 347-215-8041. Okay, area code 205-369. Are you there? Area code 205? Okay. Okay, Aseer. We'll wait for other people to call in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have another question since we're waiting.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
On the Noble Drew Ali's Registry of Deeds in 1928 in Cook County. I have a copy. I have a copy of it. And I want to know why they scratched out trustee, and put in sheik. Who was that? A bona fide process, or was that somebody, some crooks trying to?
No, that was the prophet making what was there relative to him.
Okay.
He also crossed out something and then put elected and then crossed out and put appointed.
Yes.
Because in an ecclesiastical government, sheik is an ecclesiastical term. It's not a Muslim term. It also means Shechem, but people believe that the word Shechem is an American word. It's not. It's a Russian word. The word that was coined by a Swedish, Russian archaeologist, anthropologist named Alexander von Wuthenau. And then that was adopted by the Native American community to replace the term chief, so it could sound more native. But it's not. It's actually a Russian word, which again means it's foreign, which shows how foreign they are to America, you know what I'm saying? But when you use the term sheik, crossing that out, and then also using the term appointed, when you elect somebody, that's a form of can be represented as secular government.
Yeah.
Meaning of the world. But when you're appointed, that's like saying that you're anointed. See what I'm saying? That means God is involved. And whenever God is involved, the only way that men pay attention to what any other man is saying or believe is if they have some sort of godliness to them. The only reason why a government can actually function in the world is if they subscribe to some sort of God. You know what I'm saying? The reason why that they trying to purge the Kurdish people, for instance, in Iran and Afghanistan, is because the Kurdish people are really practicing a form of ancient Islam called Zoroastrianism.
Yeah.
They follow Zoroaster. And if you look at the image of Zoroaster, it's a Moor with a beard, right, and a fez sitting in between the two wings of Mayat, right, enclosed by the circle of life with the two legs of the hawk Heru under it, right? Yeah. So when you read the Moorish Science Temple, old Moorish Science Temple cards, it says that we give respect to Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, Zoroaster, right, and Mithra. Why? Because each one of those gods represent governments on the earth. Muhammad represents all the Islamic governments, right? Zoroaster represents all the ancient Arabian so-called governments, right? Persia and all of that. Jesus represents all the Western governments. See what I'm saying? It's using the ecclesiastical doctrine to be able to be in your true self.
I have another caller, Aseer. Area code 313-918. 313-918. Are you there? Area code 313-918.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
yes, we can.
Greetings, Aseer and Beverly and Ron March.
Greetings to you.
This is Kaviji calling out of Detroit. I have a question for the brother Aseer, if I may.
Yes, please.
Brother, I was wondering, I had been reading over the information as well about the trust, Noble Drew Trust, and in one of the readings, I was curious to why is it saying that we have to correct our name to L's and Days, and I was taught that L's and Days are not names, they're titles. And when we're to correct our names to our foremothers and forefathers to honor, we are to give ourselves a whole new name away from that wardship name, that we can't just simply put a title on the end of those wardship names. So can you explain that for me, please? And I will use it for let you explain.
Yes, ma'am. from my understanding, being that we are an ecclesiastical people, God is literally on our side. So Il and Bay, Il is coming from the term Elohim, and Bay is actually where we get the term Yahweh from, because the ancient Canaanites, the B and the Y was in some instances and dialects interchangeable, the same way you have in Spanish the J and the H. So according to the ecclesiastical laws, let's say the Bible, it says, honor thy father and thy mother, right, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. That's a covenant. What that is saying is that so long as you honor the name of your forefathers, right, which is a free national name. So it's a title, right? The Il and Bay is a title, but it's also a family name. It's a free national name amongst ourselves, and it's a title of nobility in courts outside the realm that can be used interchangeably based upon your position or status. So in changing your whole name, right, like you could be known amongst Moors or whatever as, you know, Ankh Patar, this Tar, whatever Bay, if you want, you know. But the name that you came in on has the vibration that is a part of the initial energy that brought you in. So in adding the Il and the Bay to that name is fulfilling the covenant.
So you can put it right at the end of your quote-unquote Christian name, Ron March L. Bay. That would work?
Well, yeah, it would be Ron March L. or Bay.
Oh, okay.
The L. Bay or Bay L was introduced, excuse me, was introduced into the lexicon through the Washington movement as a way to signify themselves as apart from Moors of the traditional temple. But when it comes to the establishment of the national character in terms of the ecclesiastical government now, you would take a Il or a Bay at the end. So now Ron March, right? That was the individual corporation that was created at the time of your birth, right?
Yes.
That's the so-called straw man, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's the dead entity. That dead entity now is separate from Ron March L, because Ron March L now, with that L, has now signified himself under a national character the same way as if you were Ron March Rodriguez, right? That would denote that you are of a Spanish nationality, correct?
Yes, yes, yes.
So now you have distinguished yourself. But now that you've distinguished that old Ron March entity, right, is a disregarded entity to the United States. But according to the law, the United States still has interest in it, because you didn't create that piece of paper that they created. They did that illegally, right,
yes,
without
yes,
your consent, because they did it to you as a minor and
yes,
used your mother as the informant.
Yes.
So the family name, so that means based on the law, let's say of Dred Scott, if we're functioning like that, people of so-called African descent who are imported into the United States for the purpose of slavery were never intended to be citizens of the United States. That means then that even though you were born in the United States and given this designation, you were never a citizen of the United States to begin with, which then means that you were always supposed to have the Il and the Bay at the end of your name. Back in the days, they used to just put M on people's driver's license and stuff. And the cops would just ease up because they knew that the M stood that this person came from a Moorish family and therefore was outside the jurisdiction. It was very hush-hush. And
wow,
this is some of the ways they did it. On a lot of the old records that exist from the 1700s into the 1800s, the Ils and the Bays that was on the end of the English-sounding names were taken off. You see what I'm saying? And burned during the siege of Richmond and things like that. You see what I'm saying?
yeah,
Remember, they burnt down the Library of Congress. They burnt down the temple, the Universal Apprentice Hall of the Science of Law and Government, a.k.a. the original White House. They burnt all that down. And then Jefferson cashed in on insurance on it, and then used that bread to finance the Louisiana Purchase, which then broke down the Dugdamoundia empires due to the fact that when Queen Anna Maria Bay married the Marquis de Rouge, right, and gave birth to the Lost Dauphin, right, the Marquis de Rouge was a subject of Napoleon, which then meant that she became a lead subject of Napoleon, which then led to the infraction of the Black Code laws that they started to enact in the French colonies to break up the Moorish nobility and start to feed them with foreign European Frenchmen. All of this was done really to create a whole nother aristocratic class that they could then brainwash and then go in there and fight Toussaint, who had already beat them in Haiti. But by this time, Napoleon realized that his gambit in it was done, so he decided to alley-oop it to Jefferson. Jefferson purchased the right for the barracks and all of that, and then contracted two Pinkertons, Lewis and Clark, a.k.a. the explorers, and then they went to go survey the Dugdamoundia empires to then figure out how they could break it down. And that's when the whole octoroon, quadroon, mandroon, all of that stuff started in the South, right? Started with all of that, the Creole and all of that, and they started to put them on the so-called plantation thing, and then created a whole nother class and race.
Yes.
Now, someone is asking me, what about if you change your name through the state? And they want you to clarify if changing it links the straw man to that new name.
No. What you're going to do is you're not going to change the straw man name at all. What you're going to do is you're going to redeem it. And you redeem it by getting it authenticated all the way up to the Secretary of State. Having it authenticated and exemplified means that nobody in the world can use that name against you in business or commerce from that point on. However, being then that you establish your true identity through declaration as an eel now, the eel now becomes the custodian of that so-called old name that now can be used as an interface so long as you create a DBA for it between you and the corporation, which then leaves you, the free national with the eel now, exempt from levy and all of that because you have taken responsibility for this disregarded entity and are now not taking money away from the national debt. Adding money to the national debt, you're taking it away. So you don't want to change the name on the birth certificate. You want to leave that name the way it is. You just want to take the name that you was born with and add an eel or a bay to that. You would do it for the layman people. They would basically do it. The simplest way would be to fork up the bread and go down to these people and tell them you want to do well, they call it a name change. You refer to it as name correction, an adult name change correction or change whatever. But based upon how it's filled out, that's why you got to function with somebody who's functioning properly from a government like myself, because based on how you fill it out sets the premise now for all of the ID and stuff that comes from that. Because you're establishing it from the premise that you are going back to your original status, your original title. And because that title happens to be ecclesiastical, you see what I'm saying, you are adopting a religious stance because your religion and your nationality is all the same thing. They didn't separate geometry and psychology and magic and all that in chemics. We didn't separate none of that. All of that was the same stuff. You see what I'm saying? It's just you learned it at different times. So it's the same thing with this. You establish it, and now based upon them now saying, okay, this is the name that you want to take it. Now what happens is they become witnesses to the fact that you did this to go back to your original ecclesiastical government and theocratic aristocracy of which you are a beneficiary. That means that they are witnesses to that. They've already co-signed it. So now when you go down to DMB to get your whatever, any type of state ID, whatever you want to get, so long as you reserve your liberties, so long as you got your free national name and your turban or your headdress or whatever on in the picture, that means that that person in the picture is not a citizen of the United States. That person is an American citizen, federally protected, because United States citizens can't take no pictures with no headgear on, can they? No, they can't. So that means if I'm doing it, then that means I'm outside of that. I got to be a part of something else. You see what I'm saying?
So they won't let you get two things you need with a DBA. You got to have a Social Security number or an EIN.
Yeah,
number.
what happens though is when you get your name corrected and all of that, and then you get your new Social Security card, that Elam Bay got something special on the back that ties you to the empire and the temple, whether you realize it or not.
But brother, when it comes back, it's going to be in all capital letters.
Yeah, but that's not you. That's the designation on the name. Like we gotta like that, like what you're saying right there. That is what I mean about the semantics, the legacy of semantics with this. Because it's in all capital letters, that really means it's not you, but it's the closest representation to you that you have now authorized. So now what happens is, because it's authorized under a different capacity and status, it cannot be put under the same status that it was as if it was not there. You see what I'm saying? So whether it's in all capital letters or not,
the L or the baby, because of the L or the baby.
That's a different person. When I did it the first time 3 years ago, and I went to go get my credit, I was trying to get a credit card or whatever, and they ran my credit. They wrote me a letter and said, well, based on your status, we can't even get into your QSIP. We can't even get into you. We can't give you your card because we can't even get into your stuff to see if we can give it to you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas, and this is what I'm trying to say. It's status, because we're not goyim. You know what I'm saying? Goyim is like human cattle, like capital. So because we're not that, we don't fall under the same thing no more. So you now fall into a 1% strata. There's only 1% of the whole population of so-called black people, maybe 0.1%, that got their thing hooked up how I'm talking about. And you don't hear about them. No, like, the only reason why you're hearing about this from me is because the sister reached out and the brother reached out to me. You see what I'm saying? I'm not one of these people that's out here telling you, go on the website, download this paperwork, get it notarized, mail it to this person. That's not, man. That's not. I mean, if you're going to do all that, you might as well stay in the United States government. That's what they do. We come from a type of thing where we have a credo of how we're supposed to function. And so the parameters for that credo are very, very simple, based upon the time in which it was erected, which creates a baseline for all of us to come into that once fully fortified. Now I can say, okay, these Moors got all of their stuff hooked up. They all right. Okay, now as a body, we can move and do this. Now we can achieve this diplomatic aspect like this, because we're functioning on a government-to-government basis, meaning it's not just me in my crib, you see what I'm saying, making a YouTube video and then telling people this,
so
this, and that, or whatever.
So you're functioning as a government.
Yes.
And so
we're
leaving the corporation and we're going into our own government.
What I'm saying is that you were never in the corporation to begin with, because you were automatically excluded because you were the commodity of the corporation due to ill-gotten gain. And based on that, you have no obligation to the United States because it can never prove that you meant to be a 14th Amendment citizen in the first place. Therefore, if you are not a 14th Amendment citizen in the United States and you're still here, that means you're foreign to it. If you're not from Jamaica, if you're not from Barbados, if you're not from Germany, Switzerland, Stade, Minsk, wherever, then and you're from here, that means they can't deport you nowhere. That then means that you had to be here before there was them people here. They only been here for about 522 years. That's not a long time. You was here way before that.
So you're saying we don't have to say we from Switzerland or somewhere else to be foreign. We could still be foreigners, but be foreigners from the corporation.
To the corporate jurisdiction of the Washington Square District, 4 mile by 4 mile square. The only place that United States exists is in Washington, D.C. Everywhere else, the state is primary jurisdiction. The federal jurisdiction can only come in if the state requests or if the state has usurped the Constitution in some way. So based on that, that means that you and I come from a people that can be traced to a treaty called the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. Within that treaty, we're referred to as the Alamatacanos, the Alamatacanos Estados, the Moors, the estate of the Moors, or the Republican estate of the Moors. That was what existed here from time immemorial up until the years between 1774 and 1779. Then we have 85 years of chattel slavery from 1779 to 1865. Then we have Reconstruction history from 1865 to 1965. So by that time, you have gone from an Indian, from an American Indian to a Negro to a contraband to a Afro to an African American to all of these different things. But none of those things have any relationship to anything that is in property. So when you go to any old records, whether it be the Sons of Free Moors Act or the Negro Act of South Carolina or whatever act you go to, they'll tell you that they can enslave Negroes, mulattoes, Indians, free Moor, whatever. But when it comes to the Moors, but the people who are exempt are the Moors. Number one. It's always like number one or number two. So if that was what was going on back then, the laws ain't changed. They ain't changed that. They change Negro laws every other day. They about to make a new law where they can formally charging brothers for making rap songs about killing people. But now they about to make a law where record labels got to hand over all of the masters, and that any royalties made from the song got to go to the government that then disperses it to the families. They can do that to Negroes. They could do that to Negroes all they want because Negroes don't have nothing. They are owned. And so because they're owned, they can't really speak. What's up, brother? I'm good, my brother. I'm well. How are you?
Another caller.
Got it?
Caller 773-977.
All right. How you doing, Queen? She looks just
Good evening. Good evening, Sister Bev and Brother Ron and Brother Aseer.
Have a good night. Yes, good evening.
Peace.
Yes. I have several questions. I'll try to kind of lay them out. I was listening to the show last night about the 98 EIN trust, and my question is kind of in regards to the trust, and if you are wanting to go about the process of becoming a Moor, how would you exist within contracts that you may already be in? Say, for instance, if you have Section 8 housing where you're required to fill out forms annually, and they ask you, have you changed your name, that sort of thing. If you're receiving Social Security benefits, if you're receiving public medical benefits from the state, all of these little nuances that, because I'm talking to people and they're interested, but they want to know, will this be affected by making this step or this transition in life?
When done properly, no. You know what I mean? Old business is supposed to be old business. So because you have the right to use whatever name and business that you want, what they're providing you is business. But what they're not providing it to you, they're providing it to one of their so-called subjects, which is the name on the paper. So once the name is authenticated and all of that, and now you have working interest in that name, the benefits and everything continue in that name. You're not changing that up because the reason why you're correcting the name is because that's what it was supposed to be there in the first place. The person receiving the benefits is just the person in the system. You, as a free national person, you exist in real life. So you're not defrauding anybody by doing it openly. That's why I urge people to do it in which they become witnesses to the fact. Because it becoming witnesses to the fact, you're not absconding anything. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Whereas opposed to you now trying to change the name and then not. You're not really doing that. You're basically saying that based on my, ecclesiastical affiliation with these people, right, with this nation, this is what I'm in. You even qualify now for Native American grants. That's the other side of the game.
Yes.
You could get that as a Moor, because I got evidence from 1877 where the state of Delaware created laws where white kids and black kids could not go to schools that was dedicated for Moors unless they had written consent from one of the clannish elders or something like that. So if that's the case, then you know what I'm saying, that's in the 1800s, man. We in what they call 2015, which to us would be 14,034 right now. That's the calendar we in. So you're not. When they become witnesses to the event, they can't say that the event was staged.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? They was there.
Okay.
They co-signed it. They took the money for the correction. So you know what I mean? You old business is old business. You fill it out the same way you've been filling it out.
Oh,
they ask
okay.
the name change. They ask the name change. You could be like, well, yeah, my name was corrected to reflect my religious sensibility, but that's about it. You know what I mean?
Okay. And
they
so,
ask,
when
okay.
Go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, and then that's that. You know what I'm saying? But in terms of, the name on the books, that's the name that they're dealing with.
So now I'm in Chicago, and if I want to be a part of the Moorish Science Temple here, what steps would you recommend? What are the first steps? How? Because I've been over the years, I've been listening and acquiring information and taking notes and being a grand scribbler, and so I have many notes. And like I started off listening to Queen Renita El Hari Bey, and I've just acquired many DVDs over time. And this is really. It just makes sense to me, and so I'm wondering what would be the first step, and how do I go from there?
Well,
what
email me at houseofl@hotmail.com, and if you're in Chicago, I'll give you the number of our home office, Temple 2A out there, and you'll get acclimated, being that you're out there already. And then if you have any more questions in terms of deeper study in terms of how to acquire some of the things I'm talking about, or after you register or whatever, just email me again and we'll take it from there.
Okay, thank you so much. Great show. Thank you.
Thank you. What's your email again, Aseer?
It's houseofl@hotmail.com. That's HOUSEOFEL
I have a question, Brother Aseer.
Okay.
Can you give me more information on Lee Bay versus Johnson? What year and where can I do research?
I believe that was like 85, 86. And they basically were trying to say that he didn't have the right to wear his fez or be in his habit in a certain area, I believe. And it was on the ground that the Moorish Science Temple wasn't real, or that it was some sort of cult. And they were proven wrong.
Was that
because the Moorish Science Temple falls under 1872 Religious Validation Act that says that all acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Divine and National Movement, are lawful and legal.
Wait a minute. Say that again.
The Religious Validation Act.
Validation.
Because remember, I told you the temple was founded under the Torrens title system. The Torrens title system was the old British system by which the British East India Company and the extended companies would be able to categorize the countries that they turned into corporations. But it also worked in reverse. So when he received the mandate, he went and filed it under the Torrens title system, which is the only place in the country at that time that you could record a Voss estate trust, V-A-S, not V-A-S-T, a Voss estate trust.
How do you spell Torrens?
Once it was filed there, after he did it, they took it out. So the one and only time it was really used, we did it right, and then took it out, which means that it was re-verified and refiled in London, which then means, again, London, British people love Tyre better for us. And it also put us in league under the protection of the Crown and the rest of them as well. Because we're part of the family.
Right.
The Torrens?
Yes.
Torrens title system. There's a book on it.
Torrens Validation Act?
No, the Religious Validation Act.
Oh. Okay.
That's what the temple fall under. So the temple is a bona fide religious body politic and corporate. So it's basically a better Vatican. The Vatican, in fact, took the evidence of what the Torrens did and applied that to the Vatican Charter, which is why the Vatican can do some of the stuff they're doing as well. And so can we. It's just that we need to be confederated and associated again properly.
Yes.
And it's not that hard. It's just that we got to let go, like the prophet said, we got to let go of the hate and embrace the love. We got to embrace the love that we once had, because that creates the bond between the divine and the national movement, which translates into an American system as the more perfect union.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, brother.
Okay. Well, Aseer, we have come down to the end of the show. And give your website out again that people can contact you.
Thank you. Anybody who wants to send donations, you can do so through PayPal to dukeoftears@gmail.com. That's DUKEOFTIERS@gmail.com. That's through PayPal if you want to send a donation. If you like to set up a lecture, workshop, private consultation, whatever, you can email me at houseofl@hotmail.com. That's HOUSEOFEL@hotmail.com. Site, which is www.aseerthedukeoftears.com. You could also check out my novel. It's called The Dark Skull 418. You can order it through www.darkskull418.com. You could also check me out, on Facebook under Aseer Ali Cordoba. And you could also check out some of our stuff on YouTube, specifically some of the newest stuff we put up, Super Hebrew Radio Sunday School. We're up to, I think, the 3rd episode on that. That's on YouTube right now, so please go on and subscribe. And like I said, anybody wants to holler at me about anything individually, you can hit me up at houseofhell@hotmail.com for lectures, book signings, whatever. There's more than one way to make things happen. Also, as Sultan of Alamatacanos Estados and Morris Science Temple of America, Chairman of Morris Science Temple of America, Temple 2A. Excuse me. I definitely want to give respect and praise to all of the ancestors and all of the prophets and the saviors generations that have given us the time now to be able to actively put the pieces of Osiris back together and turn Hiram back into Heru, because there's nobody that's going to come. The only reason why the United States is still functioning the way it is because we here. So if we don't decide that we want to reconstitute something that's always been here for us and we want to get into the drama of it, that's always going to exist. However, there's going to come a time when those of us that know better do better. So I feel like this is that time, inshallah. If you do, hit me up. And if not, don't,
Well, thank you again, Aseer. As always, it's a pleasure to have you, and we truly appreciate you.
Thank you, Queen, for the support over the years. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, and we will do this again soon.
Inshallah.
So, peace,
Inshallah.
Peace and much love. Okay.
Peace to you as well, Brother Ron.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and I shall return again next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
from the gutter, about to reach the top. Looking at all these haters, I'm about to touch my luck. Ancestors on the other side telling me to stop. My demons say I'm out of time, I'm staring at the clock, finishing up another hit. My album about to drop. The industry is full of haters, this album's about to fly. We hustling like we mountain climbers, about to reach the top. We battling stress like we rubber bands, about to pop. Problems with promoters telling lies, they can get it right. In the club, security surrounding us, yeah, we about to fight. Damn, I need a drink of kush to make it through the night. Damn, I need a better way to get us through this fight. I swear it's never been a guy like me to touch this music right. I swear it's never been a time like this when shit just wasn't right. Fighting murder and drug charges in a system full of lies. Navigating through the stream of dream, now who's the tree of life? Dropping science on these thirsty minds, yeah, we did our crimes. But show me one who honest, I'ma show you who ain't gon' eat tonight. Showing the realness, cause this bullshit got to stop. No scales, chaos on the rise till we reach the top. Don't you know that we ain't gonna stop? Don't you know that climbing to the top is we are? Don't you know that we ain't gonna stop? No, we're not. Don't you know that climbing to the top, yeah. Abracadabra, hocus pocus, trying to keep myself in focus. Daily meditation, concentration, while I take the position lotus. Deprogramming, scamming programs, the word designed to hold us. Translating the traps, the word designed behind the line to fold us. War and Syria, mass hysteria. Ferguson, yeah, they trying to steer. ISIS, a goddess from the polytheistic pantheon Egypt era. Don't let the lingo scare you. It's just bright lights to blare you. By the powers that be, but by prowess of setting minds free. Joshua Rama Krishna, Bali Kali TC. Kali up or die, nigga, you could never beat me. Kundalini up your spine, open up your mind's eye. Right and roll the smoke at niggas, then press rewind. Don't you know that we ain't gonna stop? No, we're not. Don't you know that climbing to the top is we are? Don't you know that we ain't gonna stop? No, we're not. Don't you know that climbing to the top, yeah. In case you didn't learn your lesson, you are limited, think outside the box, be free, stop stressing. Or personal form of depression, you could make this life a blessing. Or a prison of choice is yours to put your very best in. Stop running with boys, I'm running with men. I'ma be doing this shit until I'm 210. Having niggas like them if this nigga done done it again. Dropping science on these thirsty minds, yeah, we did our crimes. But show me one who honest, I'ma show you one who ain't gonna eat tonight. Show this realness, cause this bullshit, yeah, it's gotta stop. No scales, chaos on the rise, till we reach the top.